Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing why no one survives the Queen Mary's haunted room. Let's get into it. Off the coast of California in Long Beach, you can find the world-famous Queen Mary, a nearly 1,300-foot-long ocean liner that has been turned into a hotel. When the captain of the Titanic received a message from another ship alerting him of nearby icebergs, let's get back to the Queen Mary. During the construction of the ship, two men by the name of J. Bruce Ismay and John Jacob Astor were aboard for a test run. Both men survived the sinking of the Titan and went on to be key players in the production of the movie adaptation. Both of these men stayed in Room B340 during their trip on the Queen Mary, but both would end up dying within a year of each other aboard the ship. Coincidence? I am not sure I would ever want to stay in that room, but hey, if you wanted to, you could. Well, sort of. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Haunting. Do you think Room B340 is haunted? Why do you think nobody stays in it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more paranormal stories every single week. I'll see you next time. If you are interested in booking a room on the Queen Mary, the hotel is currently operating with a limited number of rooms available for reservations. The price varies depending on when you want to visit. But no matter when you choose to visit, perhaps, but some people don't think so. Ignoring the warning, the captain continued forward. One employee was assigned to clean the room, and upon entering, accidentally pulled a fire alarm, causing the entire ship to evacuate. His name was Justin, and he had always been skeptical of ghost stories. That was until he spent his night in Room B340. According to Justin, the moment he stepped into the room, the air grew thick and heavy, as if he had just entered a tomb. He mentioned that the curtains were drawn, despite the fact that it was daytime outside. As he walked over to the bed, the room began to grow cold, and suddenly, the television turned on. Of course, Justin thought it was weird, but he shrugged it off as electrical problems and went to go check out the view from the room. As he walked past the mirror, he noticed his own reflection, but standing behind him was the shadow of another man. Justin turned around to see if there was someone else in the room with him, but no one was there. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died. Panicked, Justin fumbled for his lighter and noticed that the closet door had swung open, revealing an old wooden chair sitting inside. Justin claimed that the room temperature dropped drastically, and he could feel the weight of the room press down on him. At that moment, he knew he should leave. Another time, a couple staying in a room found their television tuned to a local news station, reporting on a murder that had happened in the very same room. A former Queen Mary employee reported that a guest once called down to the front desk complaining that they were receiving messages from the television set that warned them not to stay in the room. When the employee asked the guest if they could send someone up to check on them, the guest responded that they didn't want anyone to come up because they were afraid. The employees said that they never received any other calls from that room again, resulting in the ship striking an iceberg and eventually sinking. Over 1,500 passengers and crew perished in the freezing waters of the Atlantic Ocean that night. Many years later, an author named Morgan Robertson wrote a fictional story based on the sinking of the Titan, a story that would later be adapted into the classic movie, The Wreck of the Titan. Years after the fictional story was published, Robertson wrote a story about the making of the film that also became popular. It was not until decades later that people began to realize that the stories were actually based on real events. Since the hotel opened in 1971, the one room has been left vacant except for one day each year. During the hotel's annual ghost tour, one person is allowed to stay the night alone in this room and experience whatever they may encounter. There have only been a handful of people brave enough to try, and none of them have ever made it to sunrise. So what is so scary about this one particular room? What follows is a chilling story that has become a part of the Queen Mary legend. This floating city has seen its share of tragedy since being built in 1930. And while it may seem like a dream come true to be able to visit such a luxurious piece of history, there are some rooms aboard the Queen Mary that are rumored to be so haunted that even the bravest of souls won't enter them alone. The most well-known of these forbidden rooms is Room B340, also known as the One Room. It all started many years ago on April 15, 1911, Now, where does the story go further? To make things worse, Room B340 seemed to attract tragedy like a magnet. But arguably the most disturbing story comes from a man who decided to spend the night alone in the room during the annual ghost tour event. As Justin approached the door, footsteps began to make their way toward him. Believing it was someone from the hotel, Justin yelled out for them to stop. But as he watched in horror, the shadow of a man began to walk out from behind the closet. Standing in the doorway was a man dressed in clothes that looked like they had been sewn together. The man was hunched over with a misshapen head. Stunned by what he was seeing, Justin snapped a picture with his phone, but when he checked the camera, the image was nothing but static. As Justin stood frozen in fear, the man took a step toward him, then another. The man reached out a hand and touched Justin's leg. Fleeing the room, Justin ran down the hallway and encountered a worker who helped him calm down. But when the worker went to check the room, it was empty. As the sun began to rise, Justin returned to the room and noticed that his camera was dead. The image from the camera was burned and unviewable. Shaken to his core, Justin vowed to never return to the room again. For many years, it was believed that the disembodied voice and shadow witnessed by Justin was that of John Jacob Astor. After all, Justin had visited the room during the annual ghost tour, and Astor had stayed in the room back in 1935. But there was one small problem with this theory. Historians believe that Astor did not pass away on the Queen Mary, but rather on board the Titanic. Others believe that the spirit lingering in the room is that of the ship's architect, William Francis, who died in 1936 after falling ill while working on the Queen Mary. So what could it be? Perhaps the room is simply cursed, attracting tragedy and death wherever it may be found. Or maybe it's haunted by the spirits of those who met their demise aboard the ship, trapped for eternity in a never-ending cycle of pain and suffering. You decide. I will admit that this is a bit terrifying. Thank you all for watching.